hello, hello. Am I coming through? Are you hearing me clearly in this very strange voice I have suddenly decided to do? I won't keep it, but I'm in it at the moment, and it does not seem to wish to pull away from me. It has lodged itself upon my very person. Oh dear. Okay, that's enough of that. Hey everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you had a good week, had a good July. No, oh my God. It's August. Had a good August so far and a good July before that. This year, man, it's on freaking rocket skates. This year has been ridiculous. How quickly it has been going. Anyway. Hope everybody's doing well. I don't have any particular topics planned or set aside for this. Reminder, while I will do my best to keep up with the chat, I cannot guarantee that I will see or respond to your comment or question if it's not in a super chat. You also get a heart from me of appreciation, unless you're also on the Patreon Discord, but the cutoff time to get questions in on that was the start of the stream. So there we go. International Cat Day. Well, a good day to all the international cats out there. Feels like a beatnik thing. Oh yeah, I know that guy. He's an international cat. Yeah. Dig it. What am I doing? What is it with me and voices tonight? Doing well minus the procrastination. You hit me where I live with that one, Steven. I feel called out. Pretty sure that's alcohol. I mean, you can choose to believe that. I can't stop you. Hey there, Dharma. Hey, Carolyn, Ms. Wicked Wolf, Adrian, B. Parker, Louise, Michael. All sorts of folks, others that I probably missed. Welcome all, Homebody. Hey, good to see you. Sorry I can't stay. I lost 2 of my feral cats last week. Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that, Reaper. My sympathy for that. I saw Mutant Mayhem. Cool. I haven't. Instead of paying the writers, Jeopardy will recycle questions. So, I'd kind of rather they did, like, I'm assuming that's real, Jason. And if it is, like, I'd rather they didn't, but that's an interesting workaround, especially for a show that's been on the air that long. It's inventive. I'll give them that. Is Jeopardy even writers union? I'm going to have to assume that they are. Like most TV writer, it doesn't have to be a scripted drama for the writers to be union writers. You know, the writers for you know, late night talk shows and for game shows, it's a television, it's a network production. They still have to be union, so yeah, they would be. Do I prefer cookie dough or brownie batter? Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of either, but I'd probably go cookie dough. At that point, why not just syndicate reruns? because ultimately fewer people will watch a rerun than a technically new one with old questions. Yes, Gray Matter. This is Woodchuck. I'm a Vermonter. I support Vermont cideries. I wonder about news writers. News writers are generally journalists, and no, that's not a union gig. So that is a different area of TV production and of TV writing. Kudos for Mayim for walking. I was about to ask Carowin whether or not she stayed, because my assumption would be that she wouldn't, and I'm glad to hear she didn't. Excellent. Which review are you unable to make because of the writer's strike? Are you the most gutted about? I'm not really gutted about any of them. What's frustrating for me is that the knowledge that I'm going to get a video out of it is one of the things that keeps me on schedule with watching stuff, particularly shows. So, like, I'm now behind on Star Trek Strange New Worlds because it's easier for me to slot it into my day when it's work. So finding the time to watch it when it's not work, because I'm not going to shoot a video on it, suddenly I'm now behind and I'm having a hard time finding the time to watch the show. That for me is the big annoyance. It's not a review. I'd say the video that I very much want to make, and I intend to make, and I probably will make, and then just not release until the strike is over, is another video on Nimona, talking about it specifically as an adaptation. That's the one that, like, I have a lot of creative energy for, that I'm probably the most, like, sort of grumpy about right now. But it'll wait. I'll live. Do I have Paramount Plus? Yes, I do. So I finally met Gunn, Lauren, and Dawn. Endured Angels. Hey, Mandy. Finally got an Angel episode. I gave a perfect score to Are You Now or Have You Ever Been? So, for folks who don't know, Rowan is watching Angel and did not like the first season. Are You Now or Have You Ever Been is generally considered to be like kind of the turnaround episode for that show, because first season hasn't shaken off the baggage of the Buffy format yet, and it's trying to do something else, but while still being a little too steeped in the way Buffy went about structuring itself on an episode by episode basis. So season 2 is where it starts to pick up. I personally think every season gets better. Now, that's slightly controversial because a lot of people don't like season 4. And don't get me wrong, especially if you know some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, there's some BS that goes on in season 4. I still like season 4. Granted, I haven't rewatched it. I will say unequivocally, the 5th season is the best season of the show by a lot. And has what competes for my favorite final episode of a show ever in television, which annoys me to say at this point because, you know, means praising Whedon, but look, a win is a win. It's a killer final episode. I don't know if journalists have a union at all, Jesse. I'm actually not too sure about that. Dharma, a member for 20 months. Thank you very much. Almost a year on HRT, zero regrets. I am very delighted to hear that. Do I like French toast? I don't really like sweet breakfast stuff. French toast, pancakes, waffles. They're a little too rich for me for the most part. I prefer a savory breakfast at this point. But I used to like French toast when I was younger, but I don't have the sweet tooth I used to. What would you do with $1 million? Pay off my debts and set the rest aside to slowly burn through. I don't have anything exciting that I do. It'd just be nice to be out from under certain debt pressures is all. Season 4 was the stuff with Charisma Carpenter. Yes, it was. My neighbor has put some kids' books they don't want on their lawn for people to take. I see that a lot. I picked up Disney Cinderella, Snow White, and Little Mermaid for my nieces. Think it's still okay to expose little girls to these stories given their problematic elements. I mean, sexism wise. I so here I'm gonna make a broad statement when it comes to stuff like that. When it comes to the problems with like the pris. Tried to started to combine words. Princess being rescued. It started to come out as Priscue. The Priscue plot. There are some inherent problems with that. However, I don't think it's automatically harmful to have that mixed in with a child's story and media diet, so long as it is not making up the bulk or the exclusive part of it. I mean, the thing is, while I'm not saying you should give any given instance a pass either then or now, but a big part of the reason why there was such a massive critique that started to happen over time of Disney's version of these stories and their projected version of femininity that they put out there was because it was pop culturally dominant. And when something takes up that much space, then the problems with it amplify. So taking that nothing is perfect, having those in the mix, I don't think is inherently a problem. Is Labyrinth worth watching? Labyrinth is my favorite Jim Henson film. I love Labyrinth. Labyrinth is one of my 10 out of 10, don't change a word of it, perfect movies. So now that is me. I also have nostalgia for it. Keep that in mind. I grew up on the thing. But I love Labyrinth. Absolutely adore it. There's an old video, if you don't mind seeing me in the flat cap, there's an old video on here where I talk about that. I don't know if there's spoilers in it, though. I don't know. I generally don't rewatch too much of my stuff from that long ago. I have a colonoscopy next Tuesday. Ooh. Well, may it go as smoothly as possible. Love cream of wheat or oatmeal done savory style with milk, cheddar cheese, spinach, and an egg cracked in it. Wholesome and good if you want a savory brekkie recipe. See, when I do oatmeal, I do like some sweetness in there, but I like it with a mix of other things. See, I like what starts out as plain oatmeal. And I like raisins in it, and I like walnuts in it, but then I want maple syrup in it. I don't mean I want maple oatmeal. I mean, I want regular oatmeal that I can put real maple syrup in. So, as long as the sweet isn't pulling the entire weight of the thing, I can still get some sweetness out of it. I can still get some enjoyment out of the sweetness. Geek Filter, thank you very much for the super chat. Not $1 million, but here's 0.001% towards that goal. Much appreciated. You win $5 million and then aliens land and say they're going to blow up the earth in 3 days. What are you going to do with the money? Nothing. What's the point? I know you're trying to press me to come up with more entertaining answers than the semi-fiscally responsible adult answers I gave to the $1 million question, Ms. Wicked Wolf, but I would do nothing. I would be depressed for 3 days, then die. Let's see. Where are we? I'm a bit annoyed with myself because there was a book about dinosaurs. It just didn't occur to me to get that one because they're girls. I usually try to avoid thinking like that. Look, it's not your fault that you have those thoughts. Like, a lot of this stuff is ingrained. It is embedded in our brains as we are raised, and it takes a lot to shake it off. And it takes a lot of conscious effort because a lot of it is so baked in that it's subconscious. Don't get mad at yourself for thinking like that. Be glad that you noticed it and try and keep it in mind going forward. You don't help anybody by beating yourself up over it. Do I like Return to Oz? I have not why can't I talk as I take another drink? I wonder why. I have not rewatched Return to Oz in decades. It's It's been a long time. So, to my memory, it's fine. I don't know. I have a labyrinth tattoo sleeve. Oh, well, there's plenty of stuff in there to go off of. So yeah, there's definitely a basis to do that. I remember the moment from Labyrinth that you singled out as brilliant puppetry. No good. Can't hear you. Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love that moment. It just shows the absolute artistry and how much you have to think about as a performer to put in. It's phenomenal. Make hot chocolate with maple syrup. That's my secret weapon. People love it. I actually prefer mint schnapps in my hot chocolate. Now, if you want to do some pleasant adding, this is going to sound weird, but a little bit of maple syrup in a glass of Jack Daniels. Actually quite nice. My mother taught me that one. Hey Vera, any plans to try Baldur's Gate 3? I don't really like point-and-click navigation, but Baldur's Gate, in my opinion, overcomes that. Down for me and me circle are really enjoying it. Well, Tara, first of all, thank you for the super chat. I probably not immediately because I'm assuming it's at full price and probably 60, but what is that selling for? Research. This is the sound of self-education. Yeah, that's a $60 game. I'm not going to pay $60 for it. I'm not against trying it. I might even enjoy it. I ain't paying $60 for it. So, no. Ever had a savory porridge? Not to my memory. I might have. If I have, it didn't stand out. I think there's a question I'm supposed to ask you, but I can't remember it until after the stream ends. Ain't that always the way of it, Black Cover? Have you ever done a rank of non-canon doctors like Peter Cushing or Rowan Atkinson? I haven't. The thing is, there aren't, unless I were to include like the, oh crap, what's the name? Shoot. Words. Unbound. That's what it was. Unless I include the Unbound doctors from Big Finish, there aren't that many to do. I mean, like, I guess I could include every joke regeneration from Curse of the Fatal Death, but that'll be kind of odd and token. And then after what? It's Peter Cushing and it's Richard E. Grant. Like, there isn't a lot to go on. That said, I do plan to eventually watch the other Peter Cushing Doctor Who movie, which I haven't yet, and to eventually rewatch, because I have seen it before, Scream of the Shalka, and do something on that. That might be something to do during the strike. Where are we? I had maple syrup to my pancakes. Also, Jack Daniels has a maple syrup line. I think not the same. Not the. It's never the same. It's the same thing that, like, so when I was a kid, I used to have Cheerios and I would put honey on them, like fresh honey. And I had kids ask me, why don't you just eat Honey Nut Cheerios? And I tried Honey Nut Cheerios, and it's not the same. Like, it's not the same thing at all. So, does stuff like Labyrinth, The Neverending Story, ever make you wonder what the 1980s Lords of the Ring would have been like? No, not really, because the thing is, unless it was going for whimsy, most 1980s fantasy, at least live action fantasy, wasn't that good. I know a lot of folks are really nostalgic for a lot of it. I think Labyrinth and Neverending Story get away with it for being highly whimsical. Lord of the Rings has whimsical bits, but unless you're going to make a big to-do out of Tom Bombadil, whimsy is not really the main takeaway on that one. The Hobbit, a bit more so. Probably would be why in the 80s, at least, trying to adapt Tolkien, The Hobbit would have adapted better. That said, we already had an excellent Hobbit adaptation from Rankin and Bass, despite the fact that everyone seems to prefer to pretend that didn't happen, the Philistines. Have you ever played or heard of the game Steam World Heist? It's not one of the types that you say make you nauseous. It's pretty fun. I have not heard of that. I played Steam World Dig 2, so I don't know if that's like part of the same franchise, but no, I haven't heard of that one. When I heard Rowan Atkinson was going to be in Wonka, I honestly thought he was going to be playing an elder version of Wonka and flash forwards. Can you see it? Sure, I guess. I didn't remember noticing him in the trailer, so I don't know who he's playing in that. John Vinyls, thank you very much for the super chat. Just finished all of She-Ra and the Princess of Power, and I really loved it. Also, I think you'd really love the new show, Haley's on It. I have never heard of that. I am not familiar. I'm glad you enjoyed it, though. I love She-Ra. I would love to rewatch that sometime. But again, time. Anyway, have I seen Good Omens 2? I have not yet, and if I had, I would be keeping my opinion to myself. I'm not doing review material in solidarity with the strike at this time. So how do I get rid of a sweet tooth? I don't know, Alyssa. Just happened to me with age. So, I don't know. Conan the Barbarian. I mean, Conan the Barbarian works, but its fantasy elements are incredibly thin on the ground. Like, there's like 2 like actual fantasy scenes in that thing. There's not much. Okay, Gendron, you have repeatedly put in this, I don't know if it's actual Latin or mock Latin or what it is, and I'm sure it's something. I'm sure that it's something that you're trying to either get me or the rest of the chat to say. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether I should be concerned. Oh, okay. All right. All right. That's fine. That's perfectly serviceable. As you were. Have I seen The Righteous Gemstones? Nope. It's part of the SteamWorld games. It's also got music from Steam Powered Giraffe, which was featured in Girl Genius once. Oh, very cool. Rowan Atkinson is playing a throwaway character as a priest, and I think it's wasted potential as he honestly has the whimsy and idiosyncratic charm to play a version of Wonka. Yeah, except it seems very strongly like this. Like Timothy Chalamet is meant to specifically be the Gene Wilder Wonka, and I think it's best not to have somebody try and recreate that specifically. I mean, I get iffy about people just literally trying to recreate an earlier actor's performance instead of doing their own thing with it anyway, but that's me. Jabberwocky's 70s, not 80s, but a Fantasy Odyssey from Gilliam. I remember that. I remember not liking that very much. I also saw that in like middle school, but I remember not being very impressed with it. SteamWorld Heist is made by the same people as SteamWorld Dig, but 3 years later. It's a whole different type of game. I love the aesthetic. Oh, maybe I'll take a look and see what it costs. I'm a cheapskate with my games. I wait for stuff to go on sale. On the subject of The Hobbit and having rewatched Good Omens series One, Benedict Cumberbatch really gets wasted when he's cast as giant CG monsters. I've gone on record with this before, Rowan. I don't like his Smaug. And it's not even an issue of him being wasted. I don't like his performance as Smaug. I just don't like it. I've gone off on that before. Yeah, I did notice that, Ms. Wicked Wolf, and I'm not sure how I feel about Hugh Grant as the Oompa Loompa. Well, actually, let me back up. In a vacuum, Hugh Grant as an Oompa Loompa going that small, going as small as he appeared in the trailer, I'd be like, eh. But given that, again, this does appear to be intended to be the exact same Wonka as we saw with Gene Wilder, it's a bit dickish to cast a normal, I shouldn't say normal, a standard body-sized actor and CGI them into a little person shape in roles that were originated by actual little people. Like, that's kind of messed up, actually. So, not Hugh Grant's fault, strictly speaking, but Smaug should be clever, not angry. I don't even think Smaug should necessarily be clever. Smaug should be smug. He should be overconfident. And it's long been said by people long before me, but people with actual power don't have to raise their voice and don't have to try and be intimidating because they assume they just are. That's what I actually deeply love about the voice performance for the dragon in the Rankin Bass animated version of The Hobbit. He is at most mildly annoyed at being woken up, but he's not threatened. He's not angry. He's a little confused, but he's just like, what is this? What am I dealing with? He doesn't have to try and be scary. He knows he is, which makes it at the point when he gets mad, it matters because it's a huge shift. Whereas Cumberbatch's Smaug seems angry the whole way through. You crank it up to 11 and stay there, it's the same as staying at 1. Both the Gene Wilder and Johnny Depp versions just make you want chocolate, don't they? Not necessarily for me, but, you know, you do you. The upcoming live-action Snow White is also kind of messing that up. Actually, that seems like a really... So, I haven't dug into that in full, but, like, I have seen things that have come out following out, like, the shot from the set that everybody got up in arms about, and, like, a chunk of those people are not the actors, they're stand-ins. Now, why they're using standard height stand-ins, I don't know, but, like... Let me say this. I'm not trying to give Disney the benefit of the doubt on this, but I feel like I don't understand enough of what it is they're actually doing to be certain that I know what I would need to be wagging my finger at them over, if that makes sense. Like, I don't doubt that in some way, the way they're going to handle this is going to be messed up. But I feel like given what mix of information is out there, I don't know exactly what that is, and so I kind of don't have an opinion right now. Excuse me. Richard Boone was great as Smaug. Thank you, ChemDog. I can never remember the name, but yes, Richard Boone was fantastic. I remember liking the Johnny Depp version more or less, except for like the extended bit at the end, adding in more crap with his dad. Well, adding in any crap with his dad, like that was frustrating because like Burton, you were supposed to get over your daddy issues when you made Big Fish. That was Daddy Issues, the movie, and it was good. And that was supposed to like purge all this stuff. And then you insert daddy issues into Wonka out of nowhere. That was frustrating. Other than that, I largely liked it. I think a lot of it had to do with I felt it was just well presented and brought in a lot of the aspects from the book, because I did read the book, a lot of the aspects from the book that aren't there. I didn't love Depp's Wonka, but I didn't hate it either at the time. I also have not rewatched it in over a decade, so no idea what I'd think now. But I remember thinking, yeah, it was pretty good. John Vinyls, thank you very much for the super chat. If She-Ra makes it to Broadway, that's not a possibility, is it? Oh, verily thou shouldst play the great role of Double Trouble. Oh, okay. that's where you were going with that. So here's the thing. I actually would be kind of interested to play it. Though I say that with the acknowledgement that I didn't super love Double Trouble in the show. But that wasn't an issue with the character as written. I didn't love the performance. And that's for nitpicky personal reasons. There's nothing actually wrong with it. It's just a personal taste thing. It didn't quite land right with me. Although I have to wonder if that is a case. Actually, it might be. If that is one of those cases of I'm really nitpicky about it because it's a part I kind of want to play. Which is how I get with things like Puck or the Corinthian or Desire from Sandman, because I really want to play those parts. So I get really picky about people who do get to play them. And actually, that might be a factor. Would I want to play Columbia in a performance of Rocky Horror Picture Show? No, give me Riff Raff or give me Frank. I would take Brad before I'd take Columbia. Because actually, I think that could be a lot of fun to be that windbag. Hi, I'm Brad Majors. Asshole! Oh, yes. Thank you, Carowin. So I am going to check the Discord early today because last few times, the amount of time I had to spend answering the Discord questions took us to the very end of the stream. I'm going to do that now, so hopefully I can be done with the Discord questions and then I can come back and have some more time with you folks without having to extend the stream for longer than I intended to. So reminder, Council of Geeks Discord is a Patreon perk. So if you support Council of Geeks on Patreon, you get access to the Discord. It's a good deal. Anyway, I'm going to hop over there real quick and then I'll be back. So answering the questions that I have there are a fair bit. Here we go. Can you think of any other characters in any show who evolved to become as complex as Londo and Jakar from Babylon 5? Asking as I remember assuming that seeing early episodes from season 1 in the 90s that they would simply be semi-comedic background characters. I could not have been more wrong, and yes, I would use the Shakespearean cliche. So, the main one off the top of my head, and Rowan, this is something for you to watch out for, would be Wesley Wyndham-Pryce. Introduced in the 3rd season of Buffy as a purely comedic, borderline bumbling character, brought into Angel, still very much in that vein, and changes a lot over the course of that show in a really fascinating way. I think he's got one of my favorite sort of long-term character journeys in television. I actually like him a lot. Heavy bit, but how do you take the outcome of the Spacey trial and now approaching his work? I still intend to avoid his work. Because the thing is, so it's not an exoneration. It's not really. Because so much of the stuff that Spacey was accused of was outside of the statute of limitations. So there's a whole lot of it that he was never going to be prosecuted for. And just the amount of people who came forward, the number of people with verified stories and friends of theirs who say they told me that at the time that happened, I don't want to see his face. That's not me saying that because of my feeling he should never get work again, but I don't want to see his face. And I will not be changing my approach. Just like I won't be indulging in Bill Cosby just because he was let out of jail before his sentence was up. Rightfully, I will point out, because the prosecutor in his case did genuinely do something that was wrong. That was fundamentally wrong. And because the case hinged on it, they were right to let him out. Not because he didn't do it, but because the prosecutor actually did something that is deeply unethical and not okay. So Anyways, that was diverting. Less heavy, strawberries or raspberries? Raspberries. I do like strawberries, but I prefer raspberries. Cookies, cake, or pie, picnic or dinner and a show. I feel like these are a series of questions to try and figure out how to ask me on a date and what to offer. Pie and dinner and a show. How do we seize the means of production given the current state of affairs? I am just an angry anti-capitalist. I do not have that much of a plan. I am not the person to give you the tools to seize the means of production. I am, however, here to cheer you on and join you in the fight once we actually get the ball rolling properly. Do you like squishy fidget toys? I actually tend to favor more solid stuff. Occasionally it shows up on screen. I fidget with this a lot, which is, just kind of a little chain link choker. I'll mess around with squishy stuff sometimes, like I've got this thing, and that's kind of squishy and bendy, and I'll mess with that sometimes, but they're okay. I kind of prefer something a little more solid. Do you think there is more story potential to be had in The Word of Nimona, or should we leave it alone and let it stand as is? My gut instinct is to leave it alone. The only way that I would not be incredibly apprehensive about the possibility of any sequel, spinoff, etc., would be if Nate Stevenson was directly involved in crafting that story. Because if he's not, then I don't want it. And like the story that was told, which is quite a bit different from the original in terms of the plot, but like the heart of that story was told and was told beautifully. My gut instinct is leave it alone. Have you heard of the band Steam Powered Giraffe? If not, they are a slightly steampunk aesthetic trio of performers who have full faces of face paint, detailed costumes, robotic movements to be in character as automatons from 1896 as they perform their music. They have a lot of lore and their music is good. I am somewhat familiar with, actually, we can thank Carowin for introducing me to some of the band's songs. I'm not super familiar with too much of it. I like what I've heard. Band lore is not a thing for me. Like, I know, and that's not even to mock the idea. I actually think it's kind of cool that some bands like have all this lore and this narrative behind them. Bands like the Gorillaz or even Kiss with very bare bones, absurd characters that the various people play. Like, I do think band lore is kind of cool. I just don't engage with it. I don't have the attention span for it. I'm here for the music. But I like what I've heard, which isn't a lot, but I have liked it. Okay, moving on. So my trip to the doctor to get anxiety treatment went well, but there was one really awkward thing about it. The doctor had such a thick foreign accent, I was finding it hard to understand what he was saying. I thought I really don't want to be racially insensitive by mentioning his accent and this, but this is medical advice, so I really need to understand it properly. Luckily, he saw my confusion, though it was actually because the advice, thought it was actually because the advice was complicated and wrote it down. How would you handle having to deal with a doctor you can't understand because they have a thick accent? I don't know. I've never been in that situation. I think asking for written instructions probably would have been my go-to request. So, I mean, obviously you need good information. So you need to understand what it is you're being told. So I think asking for something either printed out or written down, I think is probably the best way to deal with that. Why do you think being a prominent TERF seems to consume people's lives in a way other bigotries don't? Like, Glinner got so obsessed with it, his wife left him. I feel like other kinds of bigots, while still being terrible people, are at least capable of having other interests and relationships. Here's my theory on that. Most other bigotries that are prominent, such as religiously founded bigotry, racism, big one, misogyny, etc., ableism, a lot of those are baked into society to one degree or another. We live in a white supremacist society. Well, I say we. Americans, absolutely. Europeans, to a degree as well, live in a white supremacist patriarchal society. That's the society that we exist in. We just do. And so a lot of the bigotries that underpin that are just built into the fabric of our lives. So in other words, it's possible to be very much invested in those misconceptions and those skewed ways of viewing the world, but it's just your normal. It doesn't become something you have to commit yourself to because it's just kind of there. Honestly, it's active work to fight against that stuff because, as I said, it's baked into the system. Transphobia isn't as much. Actually, you look historically at coverage of trans people, a lot of it had a lot of misunderstanding and ignorance, but there wasn't a lot of hate behind it. There was just confusion. You can find praising, even sometimes badly worded, but often largely positive articles, news pieces, daytime talk show, whatever, various things about trans people that are for the most part positive, dating back to the freaking 50s. This level of hate is new, and it's not ingrained and baked into our society as much. So whereas people who engage in racism, misogyny, certain religious things, ableism, fat phobia, etc., you kind of have to go out of your way to stop doing that, and you can just dwell in the nonsense. With transphobia, you have to kind of go out of your way to do it. And once you've started going out of your way to do something, you are going to be more committed to it. You've put the effort into it now. It's going to eat up more of your life. That's my working theory, at least. So, I was telling you about the contest Cartoon Network ran in the 90s, where they turned an audio recording a kid sent in into an episode of Dexter's Lab. You pointed out a lot of the time those contests didn't pay the winner because they view getting to, have a thing you made on TV as reward enough. Would you agree that this speaks to the pervasive toxic idea that getting to work in the entertainment industry is like a wonderful privilege, not a labor you should expect fair compensation for? Like, I think is a big part of the way studios think they can get away with treating the actors and writers like crap. Well, I mean, it's not just the entertainment industry. Society as a whole, by and large, belittles the importance of artistic medium. Basically, any activity that a person would engage in, even if they weren't being paid, but is trying to make a living off of, they tend to get looked down their nose at. So this goes for painters, sculptors, authors, poets, actors, restless creatives who have a passion and want to do this thing. And if they couldn't do it for pay, they would be doing some form of it for no pay because there's something that drives them. But when you have someone who's passionate about something, it makes it much easier to take advantage of them. Because you'd be like, oh, you just really want to do this thing. Here's some crumbs. Keep doing that. Whereas you get people in jobs that are not something they'd be doing on their own, and you kind of have to pay them a livable wage, in theory. That used to be the case at any rate. That has, of course, been eroded over time with the staggering of minimum wage and other things. But that's kind of a separate issue. That's not built into the nature of, work that is nobody's passion. Nobody's passionate about data entry, but you do it. And theoretically, you get paid a livable wage on it, or you should, or you used to. But in any case, yeah, anybody who has a passion for something, passion is very easy to exploit, and from a very young age. It's a thing people do. Any updates on your audiobook? I am getting back into editing that. I am making it a mission to work on it at least an hour a day during my work week. I still don't have any. So, let me put it this way. If I can get a chapter done per week, which is ambitious but not unrealistic, we'd still be looking at it being ready next year, not this one. That's just where it's at. What's my comfort TV, what's my comfort film or TV show, etc.? I honestly kind of don't know anymore. Because since this is my job, and pretty much anything I watch or take in, I expect to get some form of content out of, be it a review, a reaction, or it's going to show up on a list somewhere or whatever. I don't really watch stuff for comfort anymore. If I'm sitting down to watch something, the vast majority of the time, it's something that either is already inherently work or I'm going to turn it into work. I don't have the free time to just watch stuff for comfort. anymore. That's something I'm trying to work on. I'm trying to build free time into my life again. I'm failing at it badly, but I'm trying. What am I playing on Switch tomorrow? I don't know yet. It's either going to be Cozy Grove or Potion Craft. It'll be one of the two. So we're going laid back on tomorrow's Twitch stream, but I don't know yet. This is a random question, but what is your thought process between deciding which thumbnail to use for a video? For example, say you've decided you're going to appear in a thumbnail. Do you try to make a facial expression that represents your thoughts on the topic being discussed? The topic being discussed, or do you try to look your best as if you're going for a photo shoot? Well, the first thing is, most of the thumbnail decisions are made by Joel, my thumbnail guy, because I don't make my own thumbnails. I used to, and they weren't good. Joel makes them now, and they're much better. I don't appear in them very often. And at this point, about the only ones that I appear in consistently, well, this is main channel. I'll talk about the break room in a second. About the only ones I appear in consistently are reviews for Doctor Who, and that's kind of just traditional, where like my face is often shown in those. So like, it's just kind of a branding thing at this point. Not in the Take Two, but in the in the first run reviews, that's been the case. Every now and then my face will show up, and again, a lot of it has to do with precedent more than anything else. Is this the kind of thing where I've shown my face? And usually I will want something that will reflect my opinion somewhat. Now, when it comes to, say, the break room of Geeks, where the thumbnail is just a still from somewhere in the video, and I'll try and find something that basically just works. It may or may not be super reflective of my opinion. Sometimes I'll actually deliberately play with that and like have a face that's like, I don't know about this, but I actually kind of like it. And there was just one bit that I was talking about the thing. So like just to mess with people. But by and large, I'll try and find a moment to use as the thumbnail that is more or less representative. Why do you think no one's really tried the whole interactive movie thing since Black Mirror did it? Is it because of a fundamental flaw with the idea? Or is it more to do with the big studio deeming it too risky or time-consuming to produce? I think it's both. The thing is, it's a gimmick. And it's a very high commitment gimmick. Like, that Bandersnatch was a ton of work. It was like 8 times the amount of writing and shooting and editing that a standard episode of Black Mirror was. But it didn't get 8 times the viewership. So like that was done largely as an experiment, and it probably didn't help that the single most predominant instance of it that happened was also a deconstruction of the idea. So basically the first big thing that came out that was like, hey, we're gonna try out this choose your own how the story goes thing, and it's a complete tear down and deconstruction of the very merit of the concept. How do you pick it up again after that? So I think the amount of work that is involved in it for something that is ultimately just a gimmick, like it is not a gimmick that is going to boost your engagement high enough for it to be worth the amount of effort in it. And I think Black Mirror got away with it for basically getting there first, so far as I'm aware. And they also deconstructed it. So it's like, what is there to even do now? You said in your YouTube feed that you wouldn't make a video about the Miranda Sings video and the backlash from it. Would you be comfortable summarizing your thoughts here? The summary of my thoughts on Miranda Sings is, wow. There you go. That's my summary of my thoughts on that. All right, I am back in the main chat now. Let me see if I can catch up. We've got new super chats in. Super chat. Supreme Omega. On Superman film adaptations, do you feel the iconic nature of Donna Reeve films has unfairly overshadowed any other potential interpretations of Supes? Honestly, I don't think it has overshadowed it in the minds of the popular imagination nearly as much as it has intimidated the crap out of filmmakers. I think at this point, and this is not to knock the Christopher Reeve Superman film, especially the first one, but other than just kind of the image of him, that is not as nearly as ingrained in the popular culture as, say, I don't know, Judy Garland as Dorothy. Those movies are the kinds of thing that haven't really re-upped their investment into each new generation of pop culture, like something like Wizard of Oz has. And I don't know why that's my go-to example, but it's just the one that's in my head right now. But I think that was true certainly into the 90s, and I'd say that might have even been true at the time of Superman Returns. But at this point, I don't really think it is. I think people are just terrified. I think filmmakers and studio execs are just terrified of the comparison, despite the fact that I don't think that many people outside of folks my age and older actually care that much. So, how much transphobia is not simply leftover squeamishness about homosexuality? Actually, a lot of it. The tactics currently being deployed against trans people are basically a remix of tactics that were used against gay people, particularly gay men. The underlying core and seed of the hatred is a bit different. The methodology is the same. Because if you're going to oppress people, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But like it is similar insofar as the entire LGBTQIA plus spectrum is inherently disruptive, and anyone who is super invested in the false narrative of the nuclear white able-bodied family being the heart and soul of the nation somehow, if you are super invested in that lie, then LGBTQIA plus people by their very existence are inherently threatening to that. So like it's similar in that entire grouping has that same effect, but like ultimately no, it's not just leftover homophobia. It is a significant mutation when it comes to bigotry. How do I respond if my mom glances at the screen and says something like, LOL, is that man wearing lipstick or something? She's not terribly accepting in general. I don't know. Tell her to come back to the screen and I'll address her directly and say, hey, Mom, you don't know me. Unless you want to grab a drink and catch up, shut up. I won't do that. I don't know. I don't know the best way to respond because there is no generic answer to that. The best way to respond has to do with the nature of your mother and the nature of your relationship, and I don't know either of those things. Who are the other people in the intro of Council of Geeks? I've always wondered. I have addressed this so many times. There are 3 other people in the logo. There is Ryan, there is Liz, there is Paul. These are 3 people who have historically appeared on the channel if you go far enough back. And I don't want to remove them simply because they don't appear now. To me, having them still in the logo acknowledges the history and their presence and their contributions to what this has been over the years. So they stay, even though I have to keep explaining who the hell they are. Do I like s'mores? Yeah, they're okay. They're better if you can get like Andy's mint chocolate. Those make great s'mores. Are there any Yuri or otherwise queer manga you would recommend? I have not read a great deal of manga, so I have no recommendations. Started Orange is the New Black last week. It has some surprisingly good trans and sapphic representation in it, as well as being super bingeable. I watched the first 2 seasons, really enjoyed the second season, Never came back, and based off what I've heard from people who did keep watching, I am very satisfied with that decision. Vera, the Motley Fuse story is getting really good. Can't wait till next week. Oh, thank you, Knit and Crochet Tiger. For folks who don't know, that is a reference to the D&D stream that I'm on called Quill and Sword. The backlog of episodes are on YouTube. If you look for Quill and Sword, Quill ampersand Sword. And it's on Partridge Quill on Twitch every other Thursday. I'm having a lot of fun with that campaign. It's been, and I love playing Wisp. Wisp is really near and dear to my heart at this point. It's hard to watch The Wizard of Oz knowing what happened to Judy Garland. I mean, that's true of most classic movies. You find that you scratch beneath the surface of, well, most classic movies, hell, most movies in general, you're going to find something that's going to make you go, oh. Supreme Omega. I know you criticize 90s comics, but were the 2000s any better? I feel the aughts is more deserving of the grimdark label with stuff like Identity Crisis. The thing is, the 90s bounced me off of reading comics on a regular basis. So I don't have as good a view of the 2000s era of comics. The 2000s broke DC, for sure. DC went to absolute hell. And honestly, a lot of the worst aspects of 90s extreme were borne out by Marvel. Not to say DC was immune, they weren't. But Marvel seemed to be infected with that a lot worse. But then the 2000s rolled along, and that wasn't just grimdark, that was nihilistic, that was hateful. You talk about stuff like Identity Crisis, I honestly find that story deplorable. And I have friends who I respect and who I know are wonderful, smart, compassionate people who really like that story. And I still love them. I love them no less. But I do not get it. I do not get it at all. I think that story is... I think that story is just atrocious. I think it is a fascinating setup. I think it's a fascinating starting premise. The answer to the mystery is not good, especially considering that once you actually know what's going on, it doesn't actually pan out very well. All of the big moments of it don't even have anything to do with the freaking mystery. They kill multiple characters for literally no reason. Literally no reason. Why? There are characters who have nothing to do with the main plot who die. Why? There's the depiction of mental health, which is super forked. Just completely and utterly forked. And then there's the entire thing with Dr. Light, which has nothing to do with the mystery that was the initial hook. It's just an additional thing they uncover. And it breaks everything, and I hate it. And it is gross, and it is misogynistic, and I hate it. You are not a bad person if you like Identity Crisis. Just like you are not a bad person if you like The Shining. Just like you're not a bad person if you like Hellbent. But I hate these things. I hate them. And of those three things that I mentioned, I think I probably hate Identity Crisis. Oh, hang on. OBS got weird on me. Am I back? All right. I hate Identity Crisis on a similar basis by which I hate The Idiot's Lantern episode of Doctor Who. I find it gross. I find it gross that it was determined that these plot beats and these story moments were deemed acceptable. I think it's gross. Since anxiety got bad, I had this toxic relationship with my dad where drunkenly express it in the middle of the night, and he tells me he's mad at it in an ableist way because I'm autistic. sounds like there is a lot to unpack and work on there. Probably like collectively, within the family. And I am not a therapist or counselor, so I'm not really in a position as to offer advice on that. I can only wish you the best of luck. Have you ever listened to The Bad Guys? I find their explorations of historic homophobia and often lack thereof fascinating. I am not familiar. Is it okay to identify you as non-binary? I don't think Mother is familiar with gender fluid. I mean, non-binary is not inaccurate. The only reason I don't use the term generally is because when most people hear non-binary, they think a fixed sense of gender that is between or outside of the male and female binary system, whereas the reason I'm not binary is sometimes I'm in there, but my thing doesn't stay put. But non-binary is not inaccurate. Gender fluid is a non-binary identity. So if you want to identify me as non-binary, I'm not insulted, because it's technically accurate. It's just a term I don't use because it tends to conjure a more specific notion in a lot of people's heads, and it's one that the standard thought that people get in their mind when they hear the word is not accurate to me, so that's normally why I don't use it, but it's not inaccurate. Why do trans people seem to get more discrimination than any other people in the LGBT spectrum, especially from other people on the spectrum? There are a lot of reasons for that, Robin. I will try and break that down quickly because I know I'm running over time. The first is that the reason trans people are the big target is because the conservative movement, the religious right, the far right, the alt-right, they have, at least for the time, lost their war against homosexuality. They have not, let's be clear, they have not stopped hating gay people, lesbians, and bisexuals, but they have had to accept a ceasefire on that pretty much ever since the legalization of gay marriage in the US. Now, if that ever goes away, it'll be right back to going after them again. But what they realize is that trans people are different enough from the sexuality spectrum that they can target them for different reasons, and that there will be some members of the LGBTQIA+ community who will join them in those criticisms and go after trans people because we are different. Like a non-standard gender identity is a fairly different thing from a non-heterosexual sexuality in terms of the way that it manifests and how it affects your life going forward. Now, the LGBTQIA+ community is still a global community because we have a shared struggle, but like the specifics are different enough that certain people within the community feel it's okay to ostracize us, and it makes it easier for the right to single us out and come up with things to say about us that don't, like, let me be clear. They want anything that they say about us to splash back onto the rest of the queer community, but it doesn't look like as broad a thing because they're going after us in specific. We are currently getting more discriminated against because we are the one that, honestly, probably through process of elimination, they landed on as we can really hammer on this. Because collectively, most societies, it took a while. It took too long. But most societies eventually put their foot down on homophobia and said, hey, that's not acceptable. The foot has not been put down on transphobia, so it is acceptable. And because they've lost one of their outlets of homophobia, they are going to go harder. It's not like they're just, oh, well, we'll do this to the same degree we were also doing homophobia. No, you were going to do transphobia anyway. Now, all the energy that would have gone into homophobia is being supercharged into transphobia. I say that as if hate is a finite resource. It's not like love. It is sadly borderline infinite, but I hope the comparison makes sense anyways. All right, gonna try and wrap up here. Oh, I'm from the UK and trying to deal with the many issues surrounding the NHS gender identity card. But do you think the WPATH guidelines need updating and should be more closely followed? Unfortunately, Spiritborn, because I'm in the US, I don't know enough about the inner workings of the NHS to have an opinion on that. I honestly don't know because it's not a system I'm super familiar with because it's not one I have to deal with. John Vinyls, sneaking in one more super chat. It is very appreciated. If you haven't seen Schmigadoon on Apple TV, I think you'd really enjoy that show. I really like the trailers for that. I don't have Apple TV. I don't know if I'll ever get around to it. Anyways, I actually got new drugs in the long run, so don't worry about me. Well, I hope they help, 255 AD. Just know that they take a little while to settle. Like, and to figure out your correct dosage and whatever. It's a process. Anyways, I think that's about it. We're going to wrap it up there. Oh. Whew. Hope everybody had fun. The conversation kind of went up and down. It got serious at a few points, but I think for the most part, we had a good time. Thank you all for joining me. Good water. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And please remember, just a couple of things. Tomorrow, there will be my video giving my opinion for the 10 best episodes of Doctor Who starring the 13th Doctor Jodie Whittaker. That goes up tomorrow. I will also be streaming on Twitch tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. As mentioned earlier, I'll either be playing Cozy Grove or Potion Craft. Not sure yet. It'll be one of the two. Excuse me. I'll be streaming again on Friday. Saturday, I'll have a video out talking about just the idiocy of the major movie studios and networks over-focusing on franchises because they're doing it again. Like, they've done it for a while, but like they're really stepping in it again. So I apparently need to make my points on that again. But in any case, that's what's coming up. I hope that you have a great rest of the day, rest of the week. I'll be back here in 2 weeks. And please remember that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. You are the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. McCavity!